Stick around because today I'm going to teach you how to rethink the hero-villain dynamic and write better stories. What's up guys, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm a writer, I'm the author of Bad Parts, and welcome to my writing channel. Today I want to talk about the hero-villain dynamic, and this is something we're all familiar with. We've all watched a movie or read a book where there was this hero who represented good values and this villain who represented bad values, and the hero came into conflict with that villain and eventually crushed them and crushed their ideology, and everyone was happy at the end. And these stories are common. We've seen them a million times, and we enjoy them, we love them. There's nothing particularly wrong with them, except for the fact that they can take things a step further and be more complex and more interesting. And in order for them to do that, you need to stop thinking of your villains as villains. Instead, it helps to think of them as antagonists, or better yet, as opponents. And this is what John Truby talks about in his book, The Anatomy of Story. And in this book, he discusses the idea of opponents being these characters who are, guess what, human beings with actual qualities and flaws and potentially virtues that they express over the course of the story. Now, this is an interesting way of thinking of your characters. You don't have just this hero and the villain, you have a hero and someone they go up against. Someone who is an opponent, not just an evildoer. Now, the interesting thing about the hero-opponent dynamic is that at the end of the story, you can have this thing called the double reversal, as Truby calls it. And in order for you to understand the double reversal, first I gotta explain what the regular reversal is. And this is something that you should be familiar with. If you are familiar at all with how stories work, you know that characters have flaws, and typically in most stories they overcome those flaws. Toward the end of the story, they will have like a self-revelation, and they will make a moral choice after they have that revelation, and this will be what Truby considers a reversal. A character goes from having a flaw to becoming a better person. There's a reversal. Now, the double reversal is just having a reversal and multiplying by 2. Instead of just having that hero character undergo a reversal, you have the opponent undergo one as well. And what's interesting about this is that you have the hero and the opponent come into conflict with one another and have their values come into conflict, and they learn from one another. And this is very interesting. It's a very good way to make your story more complex and more insightful to the audience, because the audience can learn more if two characters overcome their flaws, or at least realize their flaws and then make decisions as a result of those realizations. Now let me give you an example to illustrate how a double reversal can work. Let's take a look at the first Rocky movie, because I think this is a great example where you have a hero-opponent dynamic. You have the main character, Rocky Balboa. He's a club fighter, he's down on his luck, his flaw is that he has no self-respect, and he needs to learn that over the course of the story. His reversal is that eventually he does achieve self-respect toward the end of the movie. Now, his opponent, on the other hand, is Apollo Creed. He is the heavyweight champion of the world. He's a real showboat. He's high on himself. He has a lot of pride, which is his flaw, not just in this movie, but over the course of the whole series, really. And Apollo Creed, in this first movie, is undermined by his pride. He doesn't take Rocky seriously, and because of this, Apollo doesn't really prepare for the fight as he should. And when he does get into the ring, he assumes that it's just going to be a show, and he doesn't really need to, fight the guy hard. He's just got to hang around for a couple rounds, then knock Rocky out and call it a day. But of course the fight doesn't play out like that, and in the very first round Rocky knocks Apollo on his ass, and that is a big revelation for Apollo, that he needs to overcome his pride and take his opponent seriously if he plans on winning this fight. Ultimately, it's a great message for the audience because it teaches us something about pride and how we need to take our lives seriously and our opponents seriously if we are to succeed and continue to be at the top of our game. Now let's take a look at a more modern example. Let's look at The Walking Dead, particularly the comics, because I haven't seen past season 6 of the TV show and I don't ever intend to, but the comics, I just finished rereading them, all 4,000 pages of them, and it's just a phenomenal storyline. I love that series, and one of my favorite arcs in the series is when Rick Grimes, the main character, comes into conflict with his opponent Negan, who's a very famous character from the show. I'm sure you've heard of him by now, even if you're not a fan of either the show or the comics. But the important thing to know about this is that at this stage in the story, Rick and Negan are representing two different sets of values. Rick is representing idealism and the hope that this post-apocalyptic world can be salvaged and they can rebuild civilization and make it better than it ever was. Negan, meanwhile, represents a very different set of values. He believes that if you're going to have order in this world, you need to instill fear into your people and you need to crush anyone who tries tries to oppose you. So naturally, these two characters get into conflict, their groups go to war against each other, and the war is settled when Rick's group defeats Negan's group. Now, in the normal hero-villain dynamic, this is where Rick would just destroy Negan, he would maybe kill him or execute him, and just, get rid of him and all his ideas and everything else that Negan stands for. But what I loved about this series was that it took things a step further. And instead of just, throwing Negan out the window and killing him, they keep him around, and eventually Rick runs into a new situation where he finds a new set of opponents who pose an even greater threat. And in order to protect his community, he actually goes to Negan and seeks his advice. And he eventually takes a page out of Negan's playbook and uses fear to keep his group under control. This is something that I never saw it coming while I was reading the series, and I really enjoyed seeing how the typical hero character could be influenced by his opponent, Negan, in this situation. Now, at the same time, later on in the story, Negan is influenced by Rick. Negan, of course, at the beginning, he believes that you have to instill fear in your people, you have to crush your opponents. He later admits to Rick that he was wrong. And this is a very powerful scene where we see this character who is initially portrayed as this brutal monster. We see him expressing his humanity and showing his change and how he has overcome his flaws and how he can become a more moral person. And I thought the dynamic between Rick and Negan was just a great example of this double reversal idea that Truby talked about in his book. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And if you are writing a story, definitely ask yourself, okay, I probably have a hero who's going to overcome a flaw and have that reversal, and the audience is going to learn something from it. But do I also have a villain who can do the same thing? And do I have a scenario where the two characters can influence one another? And at the end of the day, can they both step away from this story having been changed by the other? If you can write a story like that, you will write something that is complex, interesting, and something that your audiences will love. So I hope this helps. Question of the day: what is your favorite hero-opponent dynamic? Is it Batman and the Joker? Is it Luke and Darth Vader? What is it? Let us know in the comment section below, and also let us know if there is a double reversal in that story arc. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to support the channel, definitely pick up a copy of Bad Parts if you haven't already. Also, be sure to check out my other videos. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for me. Share this video with a friend if you don't mind. And as always, remember to keep on writing.